I'm so excited to present Paolo Botazzini. Paolo Botazzini has a background as a philosopher and is co-founder of EQUBUILD, Social Graph and 21 Lab, companies specializing in web communication, SEO, social media, and big data. Professor of social network analysis at the philosophy department of the University of Milan, he has taught on the topics of digital communication for the Polytechnics of Milan and Turin. Among the volumes published, he has published Anatomia del Giudizio Universale Presi nella Rete from 2015 and Idee Virali from 2018 with Emanuele Arielli. As a journalist, he collaborated as a scientific communicator with L'Inchiesta, Pagina 99, Gli Stati Generali, Nova de Il Sole, 24 Ore. The book and his book Imito Dunque Sono was written by ChatGPT-4 with the collaboration of Paolo Botazzini. ChatGPT-4 elaborates a dossier on artificial intelligence in which it summarizes the history of his branch of technology, describes the main development and structure canons of the most commercially widespread software, and develops a reflection on the most debated issues in the ethical field, political, social, and on the diffusion of AI in the contemporary world. And together with Paolo, afterwards Elizabeth Calderon-Nurling will be in a conversation with Paolo. Elizabeth, I'm so happy to introduce to you also. Elizabeth is researcher manager at Democratic Society, a Brussels-based organization working on fostering democracy. She's currently leading a EU Horizon project called Knowledge Technologies for Democracy, specifically researching AI's influence as a knowledge technology on democratic exchange processes. In her work over the last 6 years, she has been researching on the democratization of the digital urban transition and digital sovereignty, both in her role as doctoral researcher at the German Internet Institute, Weizbaum Institute, and as a guest researcher here at the KTH. So without further ado, please warm welcome to Paolo Botazzini.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Sono Paolo Botazzini.
My name is Paolo Botazzini.
Relazioni tra politica e
I work
tecnologia
on the relation between politics and technology at the University of Milan and on data analysis at my company 21 Lab. I want to thank Ingrid Campo-Ruiz and the QTH of Stockholm for inviting me to the conference. Given the tragic level of my English and my even worse pronunciation, I have preferred to have my interpreter Camila Sanpietro translate this for you. The focus of the reflections I am about to present to you derives from an experiment which I have conducted with my colleagues at the publishing house Vietti between March and April of 2023. The international success of ChatGPT was still a recent event. It was dating back to December 2022, following the emotional response elicited by the performances of ChatGPT 3.5. The media outlets of the whole world announced the impending arrival of the AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, which was going to inaugurate a revolutionary future entirely incomparable with anything we had seen in previous history. The trepidation surrounding the creation of the AGI was made up of, and is still made up of, two opposing perspectives. The first perspective tells the tale of a future without the need to work and without any unsolvable problems, because the machines will be able to take on all operational and intellectual jobs, ranging from the labor in industrial and agricultural production to scientific research and all the way to the invention of new technological devices. The second perspective incarnates the downside of the myth of a future without work, mass unemployment, widespread poverty, and cultural and social impoverishment. On the other hand, the scientific research and the technological experimentation which was aimed towards the development of artificial intelligence has been destined, since the very onset, to the construction of an AGI. Unenduring speculations have centered on this very subject, and with the firm belief that human intelligence could be replicated, the pioneers gathered at the Dartmouth workshop created the term we now use to label this field of research. In March of 2023, we have formulated a series of prompts to present to ChatGPT-4, which at the time had just been released, to verify how much generative transformational AI could find itself bordering on AGI. The request underlying the 3 prompts that were designed for preliminary research was centered around the creation of an informative essay on the definition, the history, and the social implications connected with the artificial intelligence. So we were asking ChatGPT to give us a family self-portrait. The voice of the artificial intelligence was going to tell us in the first person the secrets to its identity, and it was going to reconstruct the family tree from which it descends. ChatGPT-4 started by outlining the essay's table of contents. It then proceeded to compile it, 1 paragraph at a time, following the articulation of the summary. The book was published under the title I Imitate, Therefore Am I, which turns back into doubt the method of foundation of philosophical certainty of Descartes. I believe that the result can teach us some fundamental truths on the state of the art of artificial intelligence and on its distance from what we intuitively classify as intelligence and intelligent behavior. Of course, the mistakes, which were made by the software, include a cluster of information which is much wider than what emerges from the correctly compiled material. ChatGPT-4 has produced about 100 stochastic parrots in around 150 standard text pages. Hallucinations and stochastic parrots are how artificial intelligence analysts, specifically Bender in 2021, have named the content mistakes which generative artificial intelligences inserts into discourse that they elaborate in response to users' prompts. Most mistakes are minor in nature and size, and are limited to 1-year variations in the publication dates of quoted essays. But at least one stochastic parrot has distanced itself from the type of mistake that would be made by any human, teaching us what to look for in the area of divergence between human error and machine error. In the 3rd paragraph of the 7th chapter, ChatGPT-4 quoted a book which does not exist, and the name of an author who also does not exist. The title of the book copies the title of the paragraph in which the book is quoted, and in turn, the title of the paragraph appears in the prompt which was imputed to generate the paragraph. Can artificial agents be autonomous and have free will? Inventing authors in books is a vice which can occur even amongst the best exponents of the scientific community. And the artificial intelligence also sometimes indulges in this habit. The entire last chapter of I Imitate, Therefore I Am is an exemplary performance of this practice. But the difficulty centers around the book's attributed year of publication, which is supposed to be 1995. But according to ChatGPT, the supposed author of the book, Mario Rossi, talks about the theses which Bennett made public in 2003 in Freedom Evolves, and then supposedly also comments on the 2017 victory of the software AlphaGo by Google against the Go world champion KG. If Mr. Mario Rossi had been capable of such fortune-telling, he would have become famous as a prophet. He would have become very rich by investing in the financial field, and would not have preoccupied himself with obscure metaphysical matters concerning intelligent machines. Therefore, today we would not be here discussing it. But we do not need this proof by contradiction to notice the discrepancy between the types of stories a student would invent to hide his unpreparedness on the subject, and the hallucination into which the discourse of the AI falls. Even the most illiterate student of the world would know not to attribute to a volume published in 1995 the description of ideas and facts, which only came to light in 2003 and 2017, because the configuration of the world that these assertions refer to renders them impossible from the get-go. The student knows the configuration of the world way before having to thematize it in a conscious way. The student's very existence coincides with the primary structure of temporality. The first fact that we are given as evidence is that this course of ChatGPT does not establish a reference to the world that we inhabit, and that we are a pre-categorial structure of any possible experience. In 2013, Christian Sejedi, with a team composed of researchers from Google and the New York University, conducted an adverse attack on the AI AlexNet, which specializes in image recognition. Okay, I will share my screen with you now.
Okay.
Right?
Ha selezionato
He selected a group of photo shots that the software had correctly classified. A school bus, a temple, an insect, a dog, and etc.
la texto di
Into the texture of these images, he inserted informational noise, composed of colored pixels.
effetti
The effect of this interference on the human eye is null.
l'effetto di questa interferenza
The effect of this interference for the human eye is null.
che seguono
The series of images that are obtained as a result of the grafting are identical to the starting ones. But for AlexNet, the operation is anything but free of consequence.
prima
Where it used to correctly identify a bus, then an insect, then a temple, then a dog, now it always sees an ostrich. And it does so
tuttavia per Alex l'operazione è mai privata.
but for AlexNet, the operation is not free of consequence.
Prima ritracciava correttamente torpedoni
Where it used to correctly identify a bus, then an insect, then a temple, then a dog, now it always sees an ostrich. And it does so with an even stronger degree of conviction compared to the measure of probability it attributed to the correct classifications beforehand.
dopo i pappagalli
After the parrots, the third stage of the artificial intelligence gains one more fantastic feat.
un tempio può trammutarsi
For AlexNet, a temple can transform into an ostrich in the blink of an eye. A school bus can fly away spreading its wings, leaving behind a few feathers, where an instant before there was a class of children in school trip. One can easily imagine what kind of risks one would be exposed to if self-driving cars were left to be controlled only by artificial intelligence. In the world of AI, the bus, which one is overtaking on the highway, can fly away any second as an ostrich or parrot, and vice versa, without such an event causing a control response, like the one that would ensue in a human who were blinded by a light or under the effect of some heavy drug.
forse più corretto
Or is it maybe more appropriate to presume that there is no world according to AI?
nella slide
In the presentation, which is the next slide,
sono richiamate alcune definizioni
you will find some definitions of AGI elaborated by Gersel and Penakin in the 2007 book Artificial General Intelligence, which were then reprised in the editions of the following years of conferences on AGI. And we find as a central notion that of problem solving.
pappagalli stochastici e
Stochastic parrots and the ostriches are teaching us to verify that the word general in AGI, if it has anything to share with a natural human intelligence, does not have complex relations with the problem, but rather entirely unconscious relations with a pre-categorial stability of the world.
misconoscere
Intelligence allows to recognize the relevance of all that has to be thematized on the background of the horizon of all the real and possible facts, which remains firm and foreseeable. This horizon,
la tradizione della
which the analytic philosophical tradition calls background knowledge, that phenomenological fungent intentionality, and which can be assimilated to the tacit knowledge of Michael Polanyi and Gilbert Ryle and André de Rogorin,
con il mondo
is
sale
is the dimension of confidence with a world which artificial intelligence lacks entirely.
reti neurali come ChatGPT
Neural networks, like ChatGPT-4 and AlexNet, go through a training during which they learn to solve problems without ever entering into any kind of relation with the world, without being in the world, to use the terms of Merleau-Ponty. AlexNet learns to associate captions to images, evaluating with how much probability a certain label within its stored archive of definitions can be attributed to the patterns of pixel it has received as input. The distribution of colored dots establishes no reference to landscapes and figures that can be observed in the external world. AlexNet has no idea that a world exists. In a similar way, ChatGPT measures the probability of which will have to be the next word that follows the one that was just printed. For the first sentence of the discourse, it uses the dictionary of lemmas which appear in the text which was imputed by the user. The machine operates a statistical calculation of the chain of the signifier and completely ignores its signified, or better, it ignores the very fact that language should tie some reference to the outer world. For decades, before the paradigm of neural networks became predominant in AI design, theorists and teams of developers imagined being able to insert into the machine's memory the archive of background cognitions that a human being has available, or at least to be able to record a sufficient amount of it to sustain the cognitive operations at the heart of the project. The artificial intelligences that accept this kind of suggestion belong to the first constructive paradigm, which was shared by Turing and the Dartmouth pioneers. They cannot learn from training. The instructions that guide their behavior are cabled into code by the programmer. Their whole mind is explicitly declared in a symbolic language, which therefore also has to host in an explicit and unchangeable way the memory data that the machine works on. The project by Google Knowledge Graph, which was started in May 2012, is maybe one of the most famous examples of this heroic projectuality aiming at an infinite task. 8 years later, in May of 2020, the system contained 500 billion facts on 5 billion entities. Despite the size of the data correlated in cognitive structures, the task to form a minimum base of information to access a world of meanings and practices, an inhabitable universe such as the human one, could not even be started. The constellation is that the service which was made available in the listed pages of Google, and still interestingly, on the serendipitous search methods. Another typical error of the pioneers has been the adhesion to a naive empiricism which keeps feeding AI projects even in the neural networks era. Marvin Minsky and Gilmer Papert, in spring of 1966, professed their conviction to be able to build a complete visual system working in the month of the summer semester. The principle based on which AlexNet operates, according to which recognizing the content of images coincides with ability to recognize the outlines of objects, does not differ greatly from the conviction that a camera and a few algorithms with explicit image reading rules can suffice to imitate the perceptive system of vision. If the pioneers and their successors had known the very philosophical story of Molyneux's question, which dominated the cultural debate between 1600 and 1700, they would have approached the matter more cautiously. William Molyneux, astronomer and physicist of the Trinity College in Dublin, proposed this question to John Locke in a letter in 1688. Let us imagine a man who was born blind, who had learned to distinguish objects by touch, and could identify a cube and a globe based on the sharpness of the former and the convexity of the latter. If this individual was one day suddenly given the ability to see, would he be able to distinguish the two geometric shapes just by observing them without touch? Locke has contributed to focusing the attention of the intellectuals on this question by inserting it in the second edition of his essay concerning human understanding, and has contributed to transforming it, according it, into the most important question of knowledge theory of the 1700s. One of the interesting aspects of the debate is that in 1728, the matter could be verified experimentally, thanks to the first cataract surgery performed by William Sheldon on a 14-year-old boy who had been blind since birth. The doctor referred his observations in an article published on the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. The young boy had not only not been able to identify the cube and the globe, but he had the feeling that everything touched his eyes or was attached to their surface, without being able to separate shapes and evaluate distances or depths. In other words, the boy saw stains of color, which were getting mixed up in each other as if they were inside his sensory organ. We could simplify this by saying that he could only perceive the informational noise without any access to the object, neither cube nor globe, neither school bus nor ostrich. One cannot reach the recognition of anything through the mechanical operation of exposing images to the eye, followed by the abstractions of the elements that recur in similar configurations. The categorization is a fundamental operation to go from color stains in the perceptive apparatus to the natural ease with which we place a world of objects and events outside of ourselves. General intelligence relates to the habit of driving a school bus along a road near the temple without expecting the sanctuary to disappear and fly off with a flock of ostriches, or expecting that the bus will fly over the temple within seconds. It relates to the articulation between the background and the events which are possible within it, rather than the ability to solve problems or invent problems to solve. Write literary pastiches to present to the Goncourt Prize, or create hyper-realistic images that resemble photographs. Mixing artistic styles which have disappeared decades or centuries ago. The fears and hopes connected to AGI are therefore to postpone to better times, which can currently not be foreseen, unless, of course, one were the Mario Rossi imagined by ChatGPT-4. We have no idea of how to engineer the original structure that opens the world and the self-conscious subjectivity which inhabits it. Therefore, on our horizon, there are no lingering digital subjects capable of creating autonomous projects surrounding the destiny of the universe, the earth, and humanity, nor surrounding the survival of these servers to the society which produced them. At least until the current paradigms of AI modeling will still be active, we will not have machines with autarkic world vision, nor with revolutionary inclinations in the aesthetic and moral field. But this does not mean we should underestimate the contribution that neural networks have offered to the lifestyle of Western humanity in the past decade. Every day we use artificial intelligence devices, be it symbolic or neural, which have revolutionized everyone's work and daily life, such as Google, spam filters, profiling systems of social media, facial identification systems, fingerprints, etc. Generative transformational AIs have opened many thought-provoking perspectives on the fields of productions that were traditionally assigned to the specificity of the human spirit. Amongst these, I would like to underline only two analyses which center around the originality of individual creation. The first is concerning artistic expression, and the second centers around daily work. In paragraph 49 of the critique of judgment, Kant qualified the aesthetic idea as a universal concept which has only one possible hypothesis, the work of art which it incarnates, but which feeds an endless process of interpretation. Since no language and no discourse will ever be able to enclose into one exegetical formula its overflowing capacity to signify. The performances of ChatGPT, but maybe in a more effective way those of the settler of figurative generation, like Midjourney or Dolly, put in question the solitude of the Kantian hypothesis, because they respond to user requests with the production of variants of past works of art, or by re-elaborating the style of a certain author, epoch, or the combination of the taste or mannerisms of more artists or more historical periods. As pointed out by Ariely and Manovich, 2021 to 2024, the result of these operations seems to bring to light a latency which thus far had remained collapsed within the choices made by the author or publisher or client in the final version of the work of art.
Cioè, nei fenotipi della creatività.
Within the phenotypes of human creativity, artificial intelligence traces a set of patterns that escape the awareness of form shapes that are passed on and re-elaborated by academies.
Riescono quindi a rintracciarvi insieme di
It can therefore retrace a set of perceptive rules that belong to the almost ineffable dimension, which allows us to intuitively or emotionally recognize the imprint of a certain author or period, but which usually does not surface to explicit awareness. The recognition of these constructive forms governs the generative processes, which are put in place by the machine, and which bring back to our enjoyment the creative processes that the original authorship has exploded, or which it has not been able to pursue, or in relation to which it has casually chosen a different alternative, leaving them in the unsaid, the removed, the postponed.
Paolo,
It can happen that these alternatives are
Paolo?
no less good than the ones that were produced, and that they hence offer themselves to an aesthetic reception from which we can derive pleasure and instruction. But this
Paolo?
opportunity is also accompanied by a question surrounding the ontology of these variations and the worth we can attribute to them. If this question has an obvious relevance for what Nelson Kuhlman calls autographic arts, like painting and sculpture, it is no less important for the allographic art. What is the completion of the last two movements of Schubert's Eighth Symphony, famous specifically for being unfinished?
Noi, per la storia della musica,
What meaning could it aim to express for us with the history of music, for the understanding of Schubert? What is the ontological statute of the composition of a fragment of music sheets that should have come to life 2 centuries ago? What is this reparation today of a miscarried act? But with what rights do we assign to the unfinished nature of Schubert's symphony the character of a deficit, of a defect? And with what rights do we today put a remedy to it? The return of the removed always poses problems of meaning and problems of evaluation. And it requires legitimation and validity criteria. It requires a permit to be integrated into the balance and the stability of current practice. The AI elevates from the unknown an area of the unconscious, which is intrinsic to art, so a sphere of extraneity within what is most pertinent to mankind in the technical essence of its harmonization process, bringing with itself anxiety, fascination, trepidation for what belongs to the spontaneous beauty of existence, but also the stupidity, the bitterness, the kitsch of what has been rejected, which in its state of abandonment suffers the violence of the state of exception, the liminality of what is accepted only because it is outcast, because it is other, artificial, spurious, anonymous. Even from a legal perspective, it is complicated to establish who the author is of the works that emerge from this kind of process. I believe we are not yet ready to answer all of this with reasons deriving their intensity from consolidated experience in social customs, in commercial negotiations, and in the refinement of skilled communities. The second perspective centers around the implementation of generative transformational AIs on professional use platforms, as will be the case for the Microsoft Office suite, which is welcoming a variant of ChatGPT called Copilot. Soon, all users of the suite will be able to use the artificial intelligence contained in the software to transform some scribbled notes during a meeting into a tidy and precise report, or conversely, obtain a summary of lengthy documents and bullet points containing simpler information. The employees of the whole world will be able to unite in abdicating the need to compile documents, read the words written by their colleagues, writing emails firsthand, interpreting those of others, performing and verifying calculations in Excel arrays, collecting and cleaning data, and creating sent and received and sent information. The Office applications can be added to the list of smart software that we are entrusting with the management of our health, our homes, our cities, monitoring physiological parameters with wearable technology, managing home temperatures, setting lighting scenarios, compiling shopping lists, measuring energy consumption, directing car traffic. These are some of the passages through which existential decisions and political choices have been relinquished and demoted to technical operations. And what Morozov.
Thank you, Paolo. Sorry for breaking into your conversation or to your presentation.
La presentazione.
It's amazing the perspective that you present that I think is for all of us is very special to hear about. Also the technical way that you have experimented with this technology and tried to find the limits of this technology. And I think this is something that as a society we're very much trying to find ways of developing any kind of critical understanding and critical thinking around how these what these technologies are outputting to us. And, so I would like to touch on there because I find that the experiments that you make is really trying to opening up this black box by using the black box, so to say, trying to find the limits of this black box, and how can we as a society who is now getting this output from these different AIs, and most of us, according to a lot of research done, most of us are just feeling too stupid to have anything to say to add on to whatever these different AIs are outputting to us. How can we start building any kind of a critical understanding and maybe trying to do these kinds of experimentations that you are doing ourselves to start building this kind of a critical mindset that we need to be able to interact with these AIs.
Grazie per aver ascoltato la
Thank you for listening to my presentation, and thank you very much for this question, which is very interesting, definitely.
Sicuramente il primo punto
Of course, but the first point, in my opinion, is the conservation of the developments of AI in a situation of open source. Because the difficulty that we would have if only very few subjects, as could be very famous personalities like Elon Musk, for example, if it was just them who could actually put their hands on this type of instruments, of course, this would leave us even more in a situation of being incapable to understand, and therefore in a merely passive condition of having to have choices made by others imposed on us. So, of course, the first subject, in my opinion, is to sustain the importance and the mandates of the open source community, to develop and divulge these instruments to everyone. Also because the community is certainly very engaged in making all of this technology more and more accessible and more available to a public who is definitely not specialized in these matters, and therefore to accept the ideas and the proposals and, of course, the solutions of everyone. The second subject, in my opinion, is to preserve the worth of public debate, especially the one that is not technical, surrounding application fields of AI. So when AI is applied to, for instance, the administration of the smart city, especially the smart city but any smart solution in general that, for instance, introduced in wearable technologies, so the body of people, or the management of homes, of apartments. It's important that the public maintain their awareness of what the public wants. The public needs to be able to decide independently from what technology makes possible. So to guide technology, to support choices that are made consciously and thought through. By all knowing that the result has to be in a way that everybody can understand it.
I think this what you're explaining now, I have this, my favorite quote that I will now not get exactly right in the wording, but from John Dewey after or during the Industrial Revolution, of saying that if we don't understand the instruments, so the technology, we will not be able, or if it will feel like that the technology has a will of its own, but it's actually just that the people don't have a will of its own. So as long as we don't understand this technology, we will not be able to create a will also of where we want this technology to lead, or how we want this technology to interact with us or into society. I believe we might be at the end of our time. Am I right, Ingrid? Oh, we have 5 more minutes. Great, thank you. And I find this exactly what you were saying about this. How can we create a public debate around this so essential and so difficult at the moment? Because with the politicians and the governmental agencies that are just like us, a little bit flabbergasted by this very quick development, how can we start catching up? And is there a possibility for us to catch up? I really like that you're bringing in the open source movement as a possible solution or as a possible counterweight. But is there a possibility to really find another way of development, find another trajectory, as long as these as this technology is right now being or coming from the private sector?
So the subject is, of course, very present for sociology and sociology of science and technology. It has been so for 40 years now. I think of Beck. He was a great German sociologist. And already in the 80s, he was thinking about the problem of the effect of the development of the technological and scientific development. And he spoke mostly about the debate on discoveries and pharmacological technologies. He was thinking about the problem of the effects of the therapies that could make people sick, in fact. With the difficulty in the public debate to actually follow these methods and these choices, which are typically much faster than the capacity of the public to keep up with them. It is true that today, after all, we are still talking about the very same problem, and we find ourselves in the same difficult situation, because the technology, in fact, is running even faster than it was before, and in the 80s, for example. So certainly, right now, what we need is more mediators compared with what we had in the 80s, for instance. We used to speak of local communities, which were preoccupying themselves with the effects of these industrial plants on their territories. Of course, today, this type of organization is not capable of keeping up with the very fast developments of this technology. And even in the private world, private companies, we're actually running towards a monopoly. With much more of this. We need to think that Google was born in 1998 with a $1 million financial support. OpenAI in 2014 for artificial intelligence came about with a $1 billion investment. So right now, being able to get into these markets actually means being able to cross an entrance barrier, which is more and more selective. So the politicians would need to take action aimed at least towards the accurate management against the monopoly. And just as was done with the Seven Sisters more than 100 years ago, what is requested would be the correct rule, so competition is fair. Because if this doesn't happen, even the open source movement will remain cut out and left out.
Thank you.
Grazie a voi.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And just to comment on your last comment there or answer there. I've been studying myself very much where within the political realm digital technologies or digital policies is attached, and it's very much within the policy field of economic growth and innovation. And I find it interesting because it's also a big problem that it is only located within this policy field and not located within all of the societal policy fields or political policy fields. And this is a big problem, but I really find it also very interesting that you're saying that the way to, or a very important part of the solution needs to be to actually break up the economic system on which the current model is built. So it is actually an economic problem or at least the economic sector is where we need to start to find a solution for society to catch up. Thank you very much for your talk, and thank you, Ingrid, also for inviting me to have this conversation with you, Paolo. Yes, and I give the word over to you, Ingrid.
Hello. Okay, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much to everyone who has joined this conference. Now the end is here for this time, but I hope this is only the beginning actually for a new field of research, if I may say. Sounds maybe too optimistic or ambitious, but let's try to think how many paths we have opened. Every presentation in this conference has opened in their own very different ways a very interesting path for research forward. So let's see if we can keep on this conversation going and assess AI critically and to have a positive impact on societies and the environment, and to be inclusive about how we consider AI in the context of the built environment. So I would like to thank everyone. First, thank you, our audience here today. Thank you very much for those on YouTube watching. Thank you for all of our sponsors. first of all, KTH School of Architecture, and especially to Katia Tolmar-Grillner. Thank you to the Digitalisation platform at KTH, Digital Futures, and to the European Commission, especially to Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Grant for making this event possible. Thank you for the advisory board for your great advice. One of the board members is here today with us. Thank you, Anders. And also, thank you for all the staff who has been helping to make this event possible at KTH. I have involved a lot of people at KTH, the School of Architecture, Digital Futures, the KTH Communications Department, even KTH Data Protection Officer. Thank you. And thank you, Joachim Nordstrom, behind the camera and sound. It has been a wonderful job. Thank you. It wouldn't be possible without you also. Thank you, David Selander, also for your help. And thank you today to Neo Wang and Xu Xuan for their personal support, and always everyone very helpful and nice. So let's see if we can meet again soon and continue with this. We see us soon. Thank you.